So over the holiday weekend, I decided to finally play and purchase a game that I had planned on reviewing earlier in the month of December, but for whatever reason, I just never got around to it. And I thought, hey, this will be a fun game to play over the weekend. And that is Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion for the Nintendo Switch. Now, why did RGT choose the Nintendo Switch version of the game? Because he's a Nintendo channel? No, I chose the Switch version of the game because I was going to be bringing my Switch with me over to my grandmother's house. She doesn't really have internet over there, so that was the easiest way for me to play and enjoy the game. Now, this game originally came out on the PSP, and I never played it. And I had a PSP during its heyday. I was playing Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition and Tony Hawk 2 and all sorts of stuff on there. But for whatever reason, oh, of course, the Metal Gear games, even the stupid card ones. But for whatever reason, I never played Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. And I think it's because during that time frame, I was still of the mindset where I wasn't the biggest fan of Final Fantasy VII. Like, when I played the game when I was 12 or 13, I didn't think it was as great as all these people made it out to be, and I just liked a different style of RPG at that time. I enjoyed games like Grandia 2 and Grand Stream Saga a bit more than that, but in retrospect, I was definitely wrong on that. I replayed through the game a couple years ago, that being Final Fantasy VII, and I absolutely loved the game. So I wanted to play this game, but I didn't want to play it on a PSP. So when they announced that this was coming out on all major platforms, I was very excited for it, and I was going in pretty much completely blind. I didn't know how the game worked or anything like that. Now, Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion takes place a bit before the events of Final Fantasy VII, but what's cool about it to me was the fact that you see lots of characters from that game and from that timeline because it's just happening a few years before them. You play as a character named Zack, who the voice acting on, I don't know if that's original voice acting from the PSP version. I'm going to assume it is, and I will give Square Enix the benefit of the doubt and assume that is the PSP version of the voice acting because his voice is kind of dumb and he's kind of like an airhead character, but I mean, it's fine. He becomes lovable towards the end of it, but you play as a character named Zack, who is a member of Soldier, and he's trying to climb through the ranks of Soldier and working with Shinra. So there's lots of things going on that are very familiar for Final Fantasy VII fans. There's tons of locations, there's tons of characters that appear because it's fleshing out the story before the events of Cloud, which I think is a really cool thing because there was a whole hell of a lot of stuff that you could do with that. Now, your main antagonist in this is somebody named Genesis, who was like part of your crew and part of Soldier, but then he kind of went sort of crazy and stuff. And there's another character named Angel. It's like, he was Zack's best friend. Are we still cool with him? Is he still, is he going with Genesis? Whose side is he on? And then of course Sephiroth is also there because he is a main person within Soldier and Shinra. So I really like all that stuff. I really like the story of the game. I wish that Zack's voice acting was a little bit better, but I definitely enjoyed the story element of the game because it definitely fleshes out a lot of things, and it's obvious that this is canon because if you watch the trailer for the Final Fantasy VII Part 2 thing that's coming out for the remake, Zack is somehow back. I don't really understand that. I guess we'll figure that out when we get to that moment. But let's talk about the actual gameplay itself because, like I said, I was completely unfamiliar with this. I didn't really know what to expect, and what I found was a game that I think I would enjoy it more now than I would have back then because it's essentially like a bite-sized game. Now, the cool thing about the game is the combat because the combat is definitely very sort of modern. It's not turn-based stuff, it's action-based stuff. And the way you control Zack is pretty simple. You walk around, you get into an invisible fight, and then the characters pop up on the screen. That's just how it was back in the day. I know everyone hates that sort of stuff now, but back in the day, that's just simply how it was. You have your basic attacks. You also have magic attacks, and you have attack points, which are like big bonus attacks that you do physically. All two of those things have a meter. You also have your meter for your life, of course, so you got to keep all of those meters up. You end up getting different types of material within the game, which of course give you different abilities and different spells and stuff like that. You can actually get to a point in the game where you can combine materia and synthesize them to make better stuff, all sorts of stuff like that. It's pretty cool. The combat itself is very fun, it's very fluid, it's very fast, you're constantly dodging and rolling and blocking attacks as well. It feels very modern, honestly, and it feels like kind of what RPGs are becoming in the modern era as far as the combat is concerned. There's also like this little casino like thing where like 3 images pop up, and if the 3 images match, you get some sort of buff, or you get a super special ability that you can hit X and do that. Well, X on the Nintendo Switch, and you could do that, or you could get a summons and stuff like that. And I don't really understand that thing. I believe it's completely random. I don't think anything you do makes that little jackpot thing. It's like the Casino Night Zone thing. What the hell do you call that? I don't know. But I don't think there's anything that really makes or sort of controls that. I believe it's completely random. I don't know. I could be wrong on that. I researched it and I tried to do different things when fighting to see if it made any sort of difference. I never could figure out where it made any sort of difference. So, but that's cool because it gives you, you know, sort of different things that are constantly happening. I feel like some people won't like that because you kind of don't control, you know, who you end up using, because basically there's like these bonds that you build with people, and there's these bonds that you could build with the summons as well. And then at random, the stronger the bond is, the better chance, I guess, you have of making a super attack with that character, or based on that character, or based on that summons, or sometimes even it's just like a healing attack. I know I'm kind of rambling with this, but it's kind of a rambly sort of mechanic. I feel it's not the best thing in the world, but I think it works fine. The way the missions are structured is kind of interesting because you can tell that this was a PSP game. It is extremely linear, and I feel like some people won't really like that. For me personally, it was fine. You know, you always know where you're supposed to go. You're always just kind of pressing forward. There's a tad bit of exploration here or there. I think coming off of Final Fantasy VII, you want to be able to explore Midgar and all the different places that you visit, the Shinra office and stuff like that. You want to sort of be able to visit that stuff, but you really can't. Like, you go there, you go to these iconic locations and new locations, and you can sort of look around, but there's not a whole lot of stuff to look around at, and your path is very straightforward. There's also other missions that you get that are available for you to access at any save point, and these are kind of like mini missions. Like, you go in this dungeon and you beat this character and then you get this ability. You kind of have to do these in order to not only level up Zack as a character, but to just get different abilities and stuff like that. So they're kind of mandatory, but they're kind of not. I enjoy doing them anyways because they're bite-sized little missions, things that you could beat in like a minute or two. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then once again, you know, you go into different environments. I think the presentation of the game is very nicely done. Like, this is a game that looks really good. You gotta remember, I'm playing on the Nintendo Switch version of this game. I only played in handheld mode pretty much the entire time. I'm only getting docked mode for footage and stuff like that. But I thought the presentation of the game was very well done. Besides the voice acting, which, like I said, it was just kind of wonky to me. I think the graphics look very nice. You know, sometimes there's a bunch of enemies on the screen. I didn't really notice any sort of substantial slowdown or anything like that. The environments that you have, they're a little bit barren that you visit, but I think they look nice for the most part. There's not a whole lot of graphical issues with the game. There is a bit of dithering at times, which is like where the screen, you know, like you get a weird camera angle and then there's just like a bunch of black dots for a character because you're in front of them or behind him or something like that, sort of camera based. That does happen from time to time, but for the most part, like, I thought this game looked really damn good. The cutscenes look really good, and it's a very visually pleasing game, especially on the Nintendo Switch, considering, you know, the hardware is getting a little bit older, but don't say that too loud because people will go absolutely crazy. It's not the longest game in the world. I'm not sure that there's a whole hell of a lot of replayability with it as well. I mean, there is some stuff to go back and revisit, but for the most part, it's kind of just a one and done game. But honestly, this game ended up being like super enjoyable to me. Like, I think that this was actually, and it's a bad thing to say because, you know, we had so many great games this past year, but I honestly feel like this game, Crisis Core Reunion, Final Fantasy VII, you gotta say that to get the algorithms. I honestly feel like this was probably one of the more enjoyable experiences that I had in 2022. Like, I just thoroughly enjoyed my time with this game. I thought it was super cool to sort of learn the backstory of a lot of the stuff for Final Fantasy VII. I think it blends in very well with the story wise. I think the combat actually feels very modern, even though at the time it was completely different. And, you know, people didn't really care for that action stuff. They wanted more of a turn-based stuff of Final Fantasy VII. But now this is what Final Fantasy VII is. You know, it's more of an action-orientated style combat system. And just seeing some of these other characters and kind of their glow up and how they, you know, evolved as characters within the game and how they sort of changed from this to Final Fantasy VII to beyond. I just really enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed this game. Genesis, who's your main antagonist, he's kind of wonky at times. He like talks in riddles and stuff all the time and like poems and stuff. It's a little bit corny, but like, I don't know, it kind of works, I feel, because you don't want to get too serious with this game, or else it becomes a little bit just ridiculous in my opinion. But this is a fantastic game. If you have other systems, you might want to check it out on other systems, because you probably get the 4Ks and the 60s and stuff like that. But on the Nintendo Switch, I think this is a fantastic version of the game. I didn't pick it up on the Steam Deck because Steam Deck still likes to connect to stuff online and stuff like that, and the battery isn't quite nearly as good as the Switch OLED. So I went with the Switch version, and I was pleasantly surprised. I purchased it digitally. I do have to admit that. I'll end up picking a physical copy up down the road, though, whenever it goes on sale, because I'm sure this game will go on sale eventually. But yeah, if you're a fan of Final Fantasy VII, you've probably already bought this, but if you, for some reason you haven't, like, buy this, dude. It's kind of dope that we have Crisis Core and the vanilla version of Final Fantasy VII on the Nintendo Switch, considering, like, these were Final Fantasy VII was kind of a game that put PlayStation on the map that should have been a Nintendo game, but Nintendo wanted to use cartridges. So let me know in the comment section down below if you have played Crisis Core Reunion, if you played it versus the original version and I'm just completely off and this game completely sucks, or if you like it, because I sure as hell like this game. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I hope you all had a great holiday season. I didn't feel like being on camera today. I just got back from my grandma's house. I need to get my ass on the treadmill because I gained a bunch of weight, probably eating way too much food. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.